No Jumper, coolest podcast in the world. In here today with Los Angeles legend, fucking dude that I've been listening to and hearing about for a really, really long time. Definitely an entity in these streets. Dom Kennedy, how you doing, man?
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Thank you for that.
Hey.
Hell yeah.
How you doing, man?
I'm great. Happy to be here live, 2018.
What you been doing all day? Let's just
Chilling.
do some regular
Today,
guy talk.
man, I've been on the phone a lot. Got some music on the way. So I've been kind of getting everything right, looking at videos, stuff like that.
Hell yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to ask your opinion. What do you think we should do about our employee Hakeem who left the door unlocked back here, and we showed up and the store was unlocked in the back? We're trying to figure out what like the just punishment should be for that.
Make him stay in here one night.
Yeah.
Sleep in here one night in
Wow.
the back. Yeah.
We were thinking about tasing him.
Tasing him.
Which it's probably
Stun
not,
gun style.
you know, it's probably not like legal or like
Yeah,
acceptable in there.
yeah.
And like, I don't
Go
know.
to the police.
Exactly. That sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen unless he signed a waiver,
Right.
which would probably be kind of fucked up in its own way. Yeah, I know you from Leal over here from Wicked Thoughts. How'd you get involved with him?
Man, he know one of my homies, my close homies, Gavin.
Okay.
Go by Mizzle. You know, he a designer, creative in the city. He used to work with Khalil, Wicked Thoughts and stuff. So we just been linking up with my new campaign, working with the youth. You know what I'm saying? Getting these ideas out. A lot of times I be having ideas, but I need the right people to, you know what I mean, like point me in the right direction. So we've been rocking. No Jumper came up. I was like, yeah, let's do it.
That's been yeah, I mean, that's definitely one interview that people have been like mentioning and asking about for a really, really long time.
Yep. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
My cousin, I got to shout out my cousin James, though. He way in Texas. He told me about y'all first, though, some years ago. He asked me, like, damn, you need to do an interview with him. The time I had never heard it, I was actually at the car wash right here one day. And he was like, he mentioned it, like, yeah, you should do an interview. This dude got something going dope. And I was like, okay. And then, like, right after that, I started hearing more stuff about it.
I get that a lot from people who, like, their 12-year-old nephew tells them, like, yo, uncle, you got to go do this podcast.
Yeah, my cousin, he not that young, but he probably like, you know, early 20s.
Right.
But he rock with you heavy though.
Yeah. You know, he used to always talk about you all the time. Rest in peace to my friend Gabe Brooks.
Man, it's my boy,
Yeah.
man. He got 2 shout-outs on Volume 2. That's my next album, man.
For
Rest
real?
in peace, yeah.
Wow.
He was heavy in the bike game.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
That's how I met him. When I first moved to Long Beach back in the day, he was out there, and he was like the only dude that rode bikes, but also really like understood like LA in the streets and was just putting me on mad shit and like told me about everything in terms of all this crazy gang shit, all the stuff that I had no clue about.
A real one in LA, in the city, we'll say a real one. That's how you could describe Gabe. You know what I'm saying? Rest in peace.
How'd you know him back in the day?
Again, my boy Gav, who I mentioned earlier, that's his cousin.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's his cousin. Yeah, they family members.
Hell yeah.
So that was like real close to home. He was more than a friend for me. You know what I mean? For sure.
Yeah, that's crazy because ever since I've been like making more moves in the rap game and stuff, I just meet people all the time who like I mention him and they're like, oh yeah, we knew him back in the day. A lot of people didn't even know he passed.
Yeah, for real. Damn, man. Yeah, now I knew I was at the repass and everything. He had a small little, you know, he was Muslim.
Right.
You know, so he had a small funeral like kind of far out, but he had a repass in the city where like people from his neighborhood and a lot of people that I know like my age, you know, shout out to my boy Fred Mack, you know what I'm saying? He like my age, you know, that was his cousin, you know, so that was like my family, you know. Outside of all of this, you know, we spent just shared time and conversations just about life, you know.
Yeah.
He had kids, all that.
That was a good dude. He was one of the only dudes that it was the first person I hung out with who we could just go out in public and he would just see somebody and they would just lock eyes and just be fucking about to square up. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I ain't from LA, man. I don't even know about this whole culture of you guys like just being on go all the time.
Right. Yeah, nah, he was like that, man. He was like that for sure to the end. Like he was really in the culture, you know, in the LA culture, like to what it is, you know, to be born and raised in the city, you know. He had, man, some stories that was like, that he told me from his mouth, you know, about shit running from the police. That was, you know, most people would be like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
Like, we drove to Denver together on a bike trip one time. It was like 12 hours of him just telling me the most fucked up shit I ever heard in my life of all just crazy shit that, you know, the kind of stuff that you would probably, like a dude who, you know, grew up in that LA lifestyle, whatever, would probably never talk about with some random person like me unless you were trapped in a car with him for 12 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
be
he
like
from
that.
a real part of the city for sure.
Yeah, let's talk about. I'm curious about like your whole come up and everything. Let's get the review for the people out there. Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about even like going all the way back to like your high school days or your upbringing in general. Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about your
Yeah.
growing up. What were your parents doing as a kid? That's probably a good place to start.
Wow.
We want to take it all the
Paint
way
that
back.
picture, yeah, man.
If we want to understand you,
Yep, nah, for sure. I appreciate it, man. So my dad, the reason why I do this LA thing so much is like because of my parents, and my family. So my dad, he worked at the LA Times.
Right.
Funny enough, when I was a little kid, man, he worked at the LA Times. He was like a director of advertising. So he had a nice little office right down there on 2nd Street.
Wow.
Downtown. They just sold that building. Los Angeles Times. They just sold that. They got out of there. But my dad, he was a manager there. My mom had a cool little job downtown, as well. And I was just like I was born on the west side, when I was real, real little. We lived in an apartment in Inglewood, So I kind of been from like, on the west side of LA pretty much my whole life, I ended up in Leimert Park when my parents got divorced when I was little. That's neighborhood that I, rep through my music a lot, that a lot of people found out about, I guess you could say.
Yeah, we
through
feel
me
like
being or this generation, people that have been listening to music, let's say the last 10 years, till now. You know what I mean?
even when I was living in New York, that was kind of like a fixture in my head of
Yeah.
like, the different neighborhoods, different
Yeah.
ideas of what was going on in LA. Because I didn't move out here until like 2010.
Okay.
So my LA direct experience is
Yep.
fairly recent.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was always.
But yeah, so I've been here the whole time, man, and just growing up in the city, man, you meet a lot of people. It's people that I know today, people that know me today that know me, because I do music, but they know me because, I ran into a dude that worked with Nas at a studio the other day, and he was like, "Man, I don't think you really even know this," and I've been knowing him for like 10 years now, plus. He was like, "I don't think you know this, but we went to elementary school together."
Really?
And when you say this in the song about playing football, like I was in a grade younger than you. I watched that. You know what I'm saying? So I know what you're talking about. You feel me?
Yeah.
And it was like, damn. I was like, okay, for sure. Like I knew that I knew you, but I didn't know that it was that deep. You
Right.
know, in terms of like you went to the same elementary school as me. Like that's big.
That's
you know?
serious.
So that's kind of like my story with LA. Like when I go places, it's like sometimes I'll know people like because I do music, but sometimes I know people just because I just know them. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like not even fucking with music, just like, oh, I really know this dude, or this my cousin homeboy, or like
You seem like just like a man about town. Like you're just very
Yeah.
like you're just a friendly dude who's like open to making connections with people, and like you realize the benefit of having a
for sure.
network.
For sure. Well, I mean, I run an independent company too, and we've always been real small and tight knit, and you got to kind of be able to like shake hands and meet. I know a lot. Like I seen when Our Future started right here. You know what I'm saying? I know Glasses Malone know as well. You know what I'm saying? And Nipsey Hussle as well, and all his homies. So it's like I got a unique perspective on the whole thing to be able to like know people on first name basis. You know what I'm saying? From different genres of this shit. Also, Top Dog, people from Top Dog. You know what I'm saying? Being around when they was first doing their thing. Like I seen a lot of movements and was there. Doing my thing as well. So, and a lot of people could vouch for that.
So what was your perspective on hip hop as a teenager, or as you started to become aware of what the music was around you?
Yeah.
Like who was it that was popping off, and like was your understanding of rap strictly LA based? Or
Yeah, nah, hell nah.
you didn't have a Wu-Tang CD?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
This is my thing right here. I was like the young guy in my neighborhood that was allowed to hang out with the older guys. So me personally, I was too young to like buy a CD with a parental advisory, let's just say, right? But when I would go down the street to my homie house, they would play Mobb Deep. Mobb Deep. On the radio, I hear L Cool J.
Right.
I remember that, and I will remember the words in 2 days. But when I went to their house, they didn't play what came on the radio. They would play Mobb Deep. They would play All Eyes on Me. You know what I'm saying? They would play the Dog Pound. They would play Wu-Tang. I had a cousin that loved Wu-Tang. So my influences was coming from everything from the mainstream to the supreme, underground, but that was still popular because like Bone Thugs and Harmony was extremely popular, even though they were like the underground, kind of like. Shit, I remember my cousin having the high CDs, from his dad.
Yep.
I was like probably in the 4th grade when my cousin first was like, "Let me play this song. I'm coming here." Play Big Papa. for the first time
Right.
ever in my life. You know what I'm saying? I remember those type of things. You know what I'm saying?
Were you unable to like listen to Biggie without like thinking of him as an East Coast artist? Like,
No,
did that
I was.
stand out to you at
he
the
was
time?
my favorite rapper.
Right.
He was my favorite rapper. Still to this day, anybody that knows me truly, you know, besides like DJ Quick is probably my favorite artist and the person that inspires me the most still to this day, just musically and just being fly with the music game. But as just a rapper, no. Even as a kid, I understood that Biggie Smalls was like exceptional. Like he was saying things that was like, wow, you know. I wasn't really, and at that time, I'm not thinking about being a rapper. I'm just a fan. I'm just
Right.
a kid listening, enjoying it. But I understood like from the day I heard that song, you know, to the day he passed away, like that was like he was different than all the other people that we listened to.
Definitely, 100%. Yeah, I still remember that. Like, I was in like the most awkward stage of my life when I was like 12, 13, just starting puberty, and that's when Pac and Biggie got killed.
Yeah.
And I was I felt all messed up.
Yeah.
Like that just fucked my head up so bad because
Yeah.
they were just so larger than life. Even since then, you know, it's hard
Yeah.
to think of any time in hip hop where you really lost like the two kings on each coast.
Right.
You know,
It's odd though. I think about that same thing a lot now. Like it's almost surreal in a way. Like damn, people let this happen. Then you add to the fact that they were real young. You know what I'm saying? The fact that it's just like in historical context, because men of their generation were going out like that. You know what I'm saying? That was like their outcome. You know, doing the things that they was doing. So it was kind of like, I don't know how you would say it, but they ended up being kind of a metaphor for the problems of those times, you know?
Yeah.
And the coldest part I'll point out to people nowadays is, you know what nobody never says? They were friends.
right? At a certain point,
They were friends. You know what I'm saying? They ate food together, they cared about each other, they was homies.
Right.
That's the saddest part about it. Like people don't expose that part enough. You know what I mean? It's like they were friends, bro.
I feel that.
You know what I'm saying? Like, think about that. They were friends, you know, so had they had the opportunity to come and do this or whatever the case may have been, you know, and they knew what was ahead of them and how they end was going to come, they would have chose, you know, I've heard from people that, you know, they was ready, Tupac at least, because he was pat his foot on the gas with it. He was ready to do something else, you know what I'm saying? But
Right.
I just wish now that, you know, those things could happen more, I guess. You know
I
what
feel
mean?
like if that situation were to unfold now, that it would be way more likely that the camps would be able to find a resolution and
Yeah.
that wouldn't happen. With stars of that level, that
Yeah.
size,
Exactly.
it just
It's
feels
hard to
like
believe.
there's so much more communication and like ways for people to
Yeah.
communicate now. It just feels
Yeah.
like it would have
Yeah.
blown the fuck up on Instagram or something, and hopefully it would have been able to like
Right.
something would have got worked out.
I hope so, man, for sure. I would like to think that, you know, even I guess you could look at Drake and Meek Mill.
I was thinking about
saw
that
some-
because people wanted to
Yeah.
kill people over that. They were
I'm
mad
sure
as
at a
hell.
certain time, you know,
Yeah.
if people would have been in the same spot and, you know, had been feeling however they was feeling, you know, shit goes a lot of different ways out here, you know. But exactly, when you really look at it in a historical context, I guess we got to start being more mindful of that. You know, look at ourselves and more as important as we are. You know what I mean? And it's easier to see that way, you know. And it's like, what's all this really about?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What's all this really about, you know?
Definitely. I feel like probably one of the most interesting things about your music is that it's kind of almost like an experiment in like positivity and like seeing
man. I like
Los
that.
Angeles through a different lens that isn't necessarily this gangster lens, which is like so many of us, and I'm sure you included, have like very like positive memories of, you know, LA hip hop. Like we love that gang culture shit. Even especially someone like who's like me and hasn't had to necessarily deal with like the negatives of it. That's a very attractive thing to outsiders and shit. But then in reality, it's like a very, you know, fucked up world where there's like a lot of bad things that happen. And I always have like appreciated that about you, is that it's like it took a lot of like integrity and like courage for you to come out the way you did and actually like present life in a different light, like a different perspective.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I mean, I would have to pay it forward to all the people that came before me. I'm saying like people in my family, you know what I'm saying? More importantly too, like I had people that own businesses, you know, that gave me kind of the courage to do what I'm doing right now and have been doing and things like that. But I appreciate that, man, because that was definitely the goal. And it's an everyday thing. It's an every album, it's an every song thing, but that's the best way I've heard somebody describe it like experimenting positivity, you know, from the LA perspective, because in a way, that's kind of like from day zero, that's kind of what it was. It was like, I used to ask people, I remember my homie Jay Fresh, you know, shout out to him. He been with me from the beginning, before the music, but he saw me from first show, you know, and we used to go around and ask people, I say that to say, we used to go around and ask people like, hey, you think somebody could be a known rapper from LA that wasn't in a gang? And just to see what people would say, and knowing that they would be like, hell no, hell no. We used to laugh because we knew that was us.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Even at that time, before I had put out any song, we used to ask people that, and I would laugh.
Right.
Because I knew that I was that person, because I had been here the whole time. I wasn't waiting till God in the magazine to be who I was, or on TV to be who I was, or on, you know, none of they fucking channels. Like, I was already going to parties in the hood as me.
Right.
So it wasn't never a challenge for me to like, do I gotta be this? Do I gotta be this? I was more known than people, you know, before I was even doing songs.
Right.
I knew gang members. You know what I'm saying? I would go to people's hoods and, you know, have my name and have respect, and went to certain schools in the city. And, you know, people that I'm doing stuff with now, I knew then, you know, or the person that they hung out with knew me now. Everybody from the city.
Yeah, actually,
everybody.
Like, being in my position and viewing that, it seems like even more impressive, because it's like you see so many. It's like a crutch in a lot of ways. Like, on one hand, a lot of kids or rappers are just, you know, they're talking about what they grew up with. A lot of people don't even like ever consciously make a choice to like be doing some gangbanging shit, because it's just around them from such a young age.
Right.
But like to come up as a rapper and not at some point get affiliated, or like, you know, sort of try to use that as part of your image or whatever. It's like a lot of people might not understand that really does stand out, because it's so easy to like fall in line with that. And if you fall in line with that, you are biting off a lot more than you might necessarily want.
Right, for sure, for sure. Hell yeah, it's a lot that come with it. I think the people that, you know, on either side of the fence, you know, they play responsibly, and they live and die with the, you know, the decisions that they make. You know, all of us, for sure. So it's like, I just try to do me, you know what I'm saying, and make it easier. I do notice, like, now, you know, it's been a lot more since we came out, you know, people that have followed suit, you know what I mean, and like how you saying, didn't feel the need to, like, it wasn't always like you gotta be a this or it is to, you know, look like you people mess with you out of LA, like, because that's not never really been the case, you know what I mean, maybe in the media, but that's like, if you go in the city, it's a lot of Dom Kennedys, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just the original Dom Kennedy, you know what I'm saying?
My guy Vel over there is like one of the first friends that I made when I moved to Long Beach, and I met, like, that's like a different type of kid. Like, the first time I ever asked him about that, I'm like, so you don't fuck with that gang shit? He's like, nah. He's like, that's not cool to me. Me and my homies, we don't do that, blah, blah, blah. And like, I mean, that is, it's like a very like valid type of kid. Even if you're like a street kid, even if you're out there, I mean, it's not like
you gonna run into, everybody get it.
Yeah.
Everybody run into, you know, everybody then, you know, shit. I got a homie, you know, he's not African American, but I've known him for a while, and I've been knowing him for years now, and he asked me just less than a month ago, like, speaking on this same shit, like, damn, he never thought about me in the situations and things I had to deal with, and I was like, you think, nigga, I've been shot at 5-6 different times.
Really?
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like, I've been there when people got shot, you know, robbed, whatever. My mom's car got broke into, house got robbed in Lamar Park, you know?
Yeah.
That's why I talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get it, but it's like you choose to take the energy and do what you want with it, you know, kind of in a way.
Exactly.
And like you said, some people, depending on where they from, man, trust me, I got homies who I realize now never had no other option. Never. I'm talking about neighborhoods, and I'm not gonna say specific spots. Like, people that's from the city, they know. If you don't, it's probably not none of your business. You know the details, but it's like some of my homies, man. You know what I mean? Dad in prison forever. You know what I'm saying? In a poor area, like, we in they neighborhood, like, you know, we turning 10, 11 years old. People got guns now. You know what I mean?
I was
For
saying,
real.
I said that somebody the other day. I'm like, you might be able to say, oh, like, don't join the gang or whatever. Like, that's some obvious
shit
advice.
sounds good.
What if you're 10, 11, 12 years old and you get to see your brother die?
Right.
And you know who did it. You know, like, this neighborhood did it, whatever. It's like, you can't, like, look at a young kid and just put them in. You can't just act like you understand and like it's as easy. It's like that shit becomes a joke real quick. It's like that Nancy Reagan just say no to drugs shit.
Right.
It's like, yeah, that sounds good, but it's a lot more complicated for a person who's actually in that situation.
Exactly. It's more to the life than just you being like, oh, I'm gonna go to school today. You know? It's way more to it than that.
And it's just silly to like pretend that everybody comes from the same background, everybody has the same opportunities, you know?
Yeah, that's naive. That's naive. You know, when coming up now, you know, we go through nice neighborhoods. I look at properties, you know, I realize like shit, like you saying, a lot of these people, they had money for 100 years.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'll come with people that, you know, they might have $45, dog.
For real.
You know what I mean? For real. Like Arco on the corner, Vernon Avenue, Crenshaw, you know, where it split up Angels Vista, used to be an Arco right there. I seen people put 39 cents
in the car
on the pump on the gas.
Oof.
When I was in my youth. You know what I'm saying? I know what that sound like to hear the change hit the thing like with the plexiglass. It's not a movie for me.
Yeah.
You know
Arco
what
got
I'm
that.
saying?
They got
It's
a
real.
25-cent fee too. So shit's real fucked up now.
This before the,
I know, but you know how they're the only
this
one
is
that charges
like-
you that fee?
Right, that's why I've been not fucking with them.
Yeah, that's what's fucked up.
Yeah, got out the Acura. I never went back to Arco.
Yo, I went to Arco in Malibu the other day though, because it was at an intersection. And I noticed that it really was way cheaper.
Man,
76.
76. Holla at me. Let's get something in.
When I was in Long Beach, 76 was my spot for sure. And my camera guy, Chris Long, one time had to sprint there in his underwear to buy condoms because this girl just told him she wouldn't let him hit unless he had a condom. He ran 3 blocks. Yeah,
That's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard.
All right, so how'd you actually start thinking about rapping? Like, who put
Yeah.
the seed in your brain, or how
I
did you get
man.
it?
I did really. To be honest, at the time I had a cousin, my cousin Jay Skills, Jason Madison. He directs now. He was directing then, but he was also doing music and DJing. He's real young. He fresh out of high school. I'm probably 4 years older than Jason. So, you know, at this time, we still turntable stage. You know, he got turntables, CDs, whatever. He DJing parties.
What year are we talking, or what
This
age?
is like, I'm probably like 20.
Okay. So a little bit of a
21.
late bloomer, slightly. By today's rap standards, a little bit late bloomer.
I guess so. Yeah. Today, what do kids? How old are kids that just jump out when they drop their first project? I was probably like 22.
You're right. That's not even really that late now. A lot of the rappers I see coming out, if they don't have somebody like completely like co-signing them and taking over their career super early on, it's usually 18, 19, 20.
Okay, where they jump out. Yeah, we probably have more planning stages, than kids today.
Yeah, when you were older, it just took longer because you had to like figure shit out. It was just way more of a slow grind back in the day. You couldn't just go throw a song on SoundCloud.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was like more planning involved. So we probably took more time planning than kids nowadays, and figuring out what we wanted to do. But so around this time, he's DJing or whatever, and I'm just like seeing the landscape of the music game, I guess you could say. At this time, the West Coast had its former glory days. They had a lot of new dudes out. You know what I'm saying? That was coming up. They was tight. They had a new West going on. With a couple cats that we used to listen to. My homies would play them, listen to them. It was tight. I was familiar with the movement, which was going on, but I didn't see somebody like me in the lineup. And I saw that this was going to be like, what the next wave of LA artists was going to be. So I made a choice. I was like, I'm at Santa Monica College, taking business class. Always wanted to have my own business. I'm from Leimert Park. My older homies had a rap group. They used to listen to rap. Kids in the inner city in America, they could play basketball, they could rap. It's no different in Leimert Park. I didn't really like basketball. I played baseball, but I could rap because my older homies had a group. They was rapping. I used to listen to them, kicked it with them. So it was just something I picked up. It was always a natural thing for me to learn songs that I like really fast, kind of. And that's kind of how I started. So I was like, you know what? I don't like nothing that I'm listening to no more. So instead of complaining, I was like, why don't you do something about it? I started making songs. I started making freestyles, let me say that, over the songs my cousin, whatever, put it like this, whatever song was hot at that time, he had it on CD or vinyl, it came with an instrumental. We rapped over that when he wasn't DJing, we was playing around. I rapped over that, we'll record it, laugh, we'll eventually, you want to take your game to the next level. We like, let's make some songs. He on Fruity Loops making me beats, writing me little melodies, hooks, things like that. He was good at that. I was good at rapping, talking shit, started making songs. Eventually, one of them songs was a song called Watermelon Sunday. It was on my first project that I put out. We shot a video for it, which was big at the time. Again, a lot of planning. Like you said, we might have been a couple years later than what kids come out as now.
Right.
But I noticed that when we put that video out, we showed like unity, like we had a plan and we were doing something that most people weren't doing, which was we added a visual and let people see what we were doing. We had a couple other songs, but that song right there made like kind of put my face out there,
right.
I'll say. And then I just been running ever since, man. I started getting money like 2 years after that.
Right. So what year were we talking? The early 2000s?
That's 2008.
2008, okay.
That's 2008, 25th Hour comes out. From the West Side with Love, which was another project I did that got me a lot of light. And I got like probably my first like articles I remember. It was like 2010.
Do you remember like the first articles you saw about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I had my boy, he was in a pen and he seen that double XL. I was in the double XL sitting on Lamar Boulevard in Stalker Place. My homeboy Danny had took a picture of me right there one morning, and they wanted to do a show and prove they have in the double XL section, show and prove, which is kind of like Unsigned Hype, but it was called show and prove. And they put me in there in 2010.
That was the biggest cosign back then. I forget about that shit.
It was a full big ass page.
They would have like 3-4 people, like right in the beginning, sort of the magazine.
And you got your whole picture on the page and a whole little 2-column write up,
just hyping you up.
Yep. And I had that. My people seen it, and it was popping. You know what I mean?
For somebody from your neighborhood in jail, they see that. Oh my God!
They was passing a little double XL, and he was like, "I seen you in the shit."
That's crazy.
Yeah. Oh God.
So, from your perspective, though, how did the music actually like get popping off? Was it just the YouTube thing? Were you like super early, like person who was just like?
No, I think
YouTube
it was what you
crazy?
said too a little bit. I've never been able to articulate that, and of course, I like to create so much. I can't, you as an artist, you can't really get in too much in love with patting your own back or listening to what people say or trying to, say what you do. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, I think the experiment and positivity actually broke me through a lot further, especially at that time and even till today, than a lot of people did, for sure, because my shit was just different. It is different, you know what I mean? On purpose, because that's how I come in real life and that's how I feel like my spirit is. And I say that to say, meaning like sometimes I'll know like this is not like what everybody listening to, but this what I like. You know what I'm saying? So I'll introduce it. You know what I'm saying? And some people I understand, they might be too scared of that. And like how you said, a lot of people they'll be like, I'd rather do something that's safer or, go with whatever. But I don't know, just since I was little, I always just believed in myself, I guess, and like my ideas, and how I truly felt about something, whether it be from clothes to songs I liked or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's like, so as an artist, that kind of shines through. But I think that was the main thing, honestly, because other than that, nothing was different really.
Yeah, it's weird to think of that era in terms of West Coast rap too, because like people forget, but there was kind of like I won't say a drought, but there was like a time period around then. Like you remember the Game burst out in 2004.
It was like right after Game. It was
2004,
like right
2005.
After Game.
Yeah, you were like
he kind of like closed the door on that, and of course he had the whole ties to Dr. Dre and everybody like that. So that kind of like, okay, he's in on that level. I wasn't really rapping yet, but it was people that was out doing their thing, but they couldn't really be attached to that because, for one, they didn't have the major, co-sign of like an Interscope and a Dr. Dre. And for two, he was kind of tied in with the last of like the Snoop Dogg's and the, the gangster rap era. So immediately it became like, what's going to be next? What's going to happen next? What's going to be next? Where's the artist at that was going to come next? And then, so I'm seeing that, and then 2008, that's when I make my contribution,
Definitely. Yeah, it's crazy because you think about it, somebody like Game came out super labeled up. Like, he got in with the label, already had that
But Game
shit.
was doing this thing, though.
Yeah.
He was doing this thing. I remember for sure being in Compton and people playing underground tapes, bootleg tapes, before his actual,
So you saw that
came
band?
out. Yeah,
Okay.
I saw it from that perspective as well. You know what I'm saying? Like I know people on the west side of Compton. I got family over there, so it's like I definitely know that his movement was real. You know, from even just having battles. Shit,
Right.
I remember hearing people say, "Yeah, he battled at the fucking casino."
Right.
You know what I mean?
Really?
With somebody like Normandy Casino or
Met
some
up
shit. You
there
would
to
have
do
to
a battle?
ask him. Yeah, battle with somebody from another neighborhood up there. This is way before his album came out. So he was, you know, he was on his grind for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of like a different thing when we look at your career because I mean, people forget that back in the day, even back then, 10 years ago, it was so hard to come up and rap if you didn't have a
Exactly.
cosign from a
Exactly.
major
The
star.
budget was still on. You know what I'm saying? The budget. My era immediately kind of was the one that broke it down. Now they kind of getting back to that. But yeah, you had to be like really tied in pre like 2008 to get anything popping.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You had to be because all the video channels was still running, you know, and it was like, okay, if you're not on 106 in Park, then where are you? You know what I'm saying? If you're not on this, then where is it at? If you're not, you know, it was still that mentality. It wasn't like the free thinking, like I could go search for this because I like it.
And
You know what I'm saying?
2008 is like the ultimate time where all of a sudden it became like YouTube was a big deal, MySpace was a big deal. All of a sudden you had all these blogs that were just writing about different types of artists that weren't necessarily like the standard stuff that was popping off, but there was a lot of like even it's interesting though too because a couple of years after that is like Odd Future and shit,
Yeah.
which is that introduced like oh look like the weirdest most non-rapper type motherfuckers on earth can come out and blow up just
Yeah.
because they're popping on the internet. It doesn't matter
shit up.
if the industry is necessarily supporting them.
Exactly. Fuck shit up.
Yeah, you kind of open the door for all that sort of mentality to even thrive, you know?
Nah, for sure. I was definitely a part of that. Yep, for sure.
Facts. So how do you, like from your perspective though, like how'd you get serious about your career? How'd you start making moves? Because it's like without a label, it becomes kind of tricky in that position to like, how do I continue to grow myself as an artist? As a young man, that's a hard decision to make.
Nah,
you
for
know?
sure. You definitely get into it and you don't know what you up against. Like if I knew today, then what I would have to be going up against and dealing with, I might have made different decisions. I might not have. I'm thankful for every, you know, where I'm at, but it's like to do what I did, that door is closed. It's impossible. You know what I mean? The shit I went through, but I didn't really start making money for like 2.5 years though, keep in mind after I started. You know what I'm saying? So even with all of that, you know, people coming up to me, maybe seeing Watermelon Sunday, you know, my cult following. I remember going on tour in 2009, 4 shows, straight California. You know what I'm saying? Not even outside of California yet. No, and going to San Diego, I'm talking about less than 15 people. You know what I mean? Bay, 50. It's popping. It's a great 50, but keep it real, it's 50 people paid to get in. You know what I'm saying? So it's like just being smarter with the business, taking more chances. You know, we had already had videos out, but I remember around 2010, like I'm saying, from the West Side with Love, timing and marketing became more of a issue.
Definitely.
You know, and that's what leads you to, you know, outside the success you feel for yourself. If you want people to, you know, pay attention to what you do and pay you for doing whatever you doing well, it's gonna come down to, you know, marketing pretty much. You know what I'm saying? Like how you present yourself, you know, and we started paying attention. I did. That's when OPM started in 2010, because it's like, okay, I don't have a record deal. I'm putting out music though, still. So it's like, well, what are you gonna do? 2010 OPM company.
Right.
That's what we rocking today. Same thing. You know, a lot of people don't realize, but yeah, we 2 more years. I'm 10 years in the game, less than 2.
Right.
You know, as a company, even having my own company as a young, you know, African American man now in this country. You know, I'm 10 years with my own company, running my own small business.
Oh,
you
that's
know, with
amazing.
the homies, Archie Davis just walked in, you know, partner. He was there the whole time, you know.
What was it about you as a person that you were able to turn down those like label offers and everything? Because I see a lot of kids who, you know, they get 20,000, something like that dangled in front of them, and all of a sudden it's, let's go.
I've spoke on that in different times. I even went on. I got a shit an album with Hit Boy, a side project we do called Courtesy of Half a Mil. I remember we was on a show. I'm not gonna say the name, but the one in New York that Joe Budden used to do. I can't even think of it.
Everyday struggle.
Right. And I had to say I spoke on people's like on deals and things of that nature, but it's like honestly, I don't really care because it's like I can't speak on what somebody for 20 G's for you might not matter to me.
Right.
I say that. But what helped me turn the music down, the deals down was, I mean, shit, I want to own my shit. I want to have my own company. That was it. You could have paid, in theory now, you could have gave me $50 million. I want the team though.
Yeah, it's
you know what
crazy.
I mean? It wasn't about the $50 million. I'll still do what I'm doing now. It's just like, I wanted just to see myself as people like me get that opportunity. You know what I mean? It's like until we get that opportunity and it's in place like that, it's like I can't really say that that's been, you know, succeeded. But that's all it was about, was just the opportunity. You know, I came up with like Rockefeller and Master P and things like that and being inspired by that. And it was like, I want to see the generation now have things like that, you know?
Right.
It's no way we still should still be the same and be looking how they still looking on paper. You know what I mean? Like 2018, 2019 now, like you saying, you know, kids shouldn't be signing for whatever, you know, again, whatever's cool for you is cool for you, but just look into it though, you know? But for me, it was about being owner.
That shows like a real different mentality than the average like person that comes out wanting to be a rapper. Because especially these days, it feels like people who come out wanting to be rappers, they just want to be celebrities one way or another.
Well, see, I didn't want to be a rapper. Exactly, I didn't want to be a rapper. I was just good at rapping. I was just being me. I wanted to have my own company. See, I got other artists. I got an artist that is signed. You know, J305, so I can't sit here.
Shout out J305.
Yeah, shout out to J305, so I can't sit here and be like, oh, don't have a deal. Like, if I, you know, sign a kid tomorrow and then we like, man, you need this 50,000 to take you to the next level because that's what you're going to do, and so offering, or if it's, you know, 100,000, who cares if that's what he needs to do his thing. For me, that was never the case. You know, I could go on the road and make whatever they was offering me.
Right, yeah.
You know?
No, that's totally it, is that like, but a lot of people aren't able to say no to that short-term bag, which you really can't blame them, because like 20,000 to a lot of people, they never had anything close to that.
Exactly.
But it just shows like a level of like maturity to want to take it to a different place in terms of like, when you said Jay-Z and Master P, I mean, those are the ultimate examples of like, if you could really build up a company, then the value to a label or whatever becomes gigantic in a way that it's not.
So that was always our goal. It just took a minute, but now we got 4 or 5 acts, I guess you would say, that we work with directly, indirectly. Warren Brew, you know what I'm saying, is one of our groups. Aisha Monet, she's our first R&B act. You know, that was always my goal in mind. You know, while people was looking at me, it was about having a vision for the company, you know, and for us to be entrepreneurs and owners of a whole company, not to end up just being workers.
Right.
You know, that would have never made me happy. That would have never made my spirit happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't have thrived well in that situation. I wouldn't have done shit. You know what I'm saying?
That's the crazy part, is just that you knew that about yourself.
Yeah, I know myself. You know what I'm saying? It's like I would not have had my helmet on every day with this shit. Like, you know, looking at it from ins and outs. I took losses, but when you not gonna take losses?
Right. 10
years doing anything, when you gonna win and have what? When you never gonna take losses?
I mean, a lot of people couldn't even conceptualize the fact that 10 years is still kind of the short term. You know, you're still a young man in the overall realm of shit, and it's like 10 years ain't really like, a lot of people, their business or like whatever they're doing with their life, they're still struggling, like they're still working at it well into their 30s, 40s. People think that your life is over when you hit 29, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of people try to make me feel like that.
Yeah, nah, for sure. I got younger homies now hitting 26, you know what I'm saying? Talking about they feeling like that. I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, hell nah. You got whole life to get it. If you looking at just 1 year or one specific thing, you know, if you 26 and you want to be a teen star, that time's up. Right. You gotta figure out something else.
If you're trying to be the cool new color dreadlock rapper, it might
if you're
be
30
over.
Trying to be a rookie wide receiver, you know, you gotta do something else, bro. Like, that's just really what we talking about. You know what I mean?
Right. Wait, how'd you sign J305? That's very interesting.
J305, man, that's my actual homeboy.
Okay.
So he been with me again from day one. You know, he was on stage at my first sold out show in LA, just as the homie. And as, you know, just being around me, doing music so much, he kind of like picked it up. And he knows a lot of people too from around the cities. But really, just being in house with me, I would say like around 2011, he made his first song, and we just thought it was hard, and it ended up being like a little underground. It's called Use a Flip. Still a little underground, little, you know, you hit the strip club tonight, Sam's, they probably play it. You know what I mean?
We should do that.
So, you know what I mean? Shout out to J305. That's kind of how he got going, and you know, the rest is history. Really, he got one album out already on Interscope. We working on the second one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's just been on my mind lately because he got that the song on the YG album that I listened to 300 times. Yeah, that's a good
that
one.
Verse.
Love that song.
Set that up for sure. They just dropped that video.
Yeah, that's just good. Yeah, so like let's talk about you sort of just like building your career around that time and stuff. Like what were like the major like things that you felt like you had to overcome in terms of like just being able to do that shit on an independent level coming out of in that situation? Because it feels like a lot of people would kind of like give up and like not be able to like do that shit independently. Like what did you need to know that helped you get to that point?
What did I need to know? Man, I didn't know nothing. I ain't gonna sit here and lie like I expected this or knew, you know, I just knew like, shit, in them days we was getting calls to do shows pretty much every weekend. We wasn't having official tours. I was able to eat, you know, get some bread off the music game. It was worth continuing, you know? I didn't really know anything. I just knew what I was capable of and what I wanted to do. You know what? I guess what my ambition was. So I was comfortable with that. You know what I mean? I'm the type of person, I might go somewhere solo, you know? A lot of places. To other places, because I'm going to know some people there, but I'm going to be good because I know, like, I know what I'm going to do if something goes wrong. So I'm not worried about that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not worried about that.
You having like the kind of image that you have too is like that's the cool thing is like if you're making music that's putting yourself out there like some crazy ass dude, then like all of a sudden going places like you got something to prove or people have a reason to want to fuck with you. I feel like you kind of have like a different like you know personality that people perceive you having. You know? Yeah,
nah, for sure, man. I love it for sure. I don't have no issues really, you know what I mean? Aside, like, you know, we've had incidents over the years. Shit, we've been doing a lot of shows, you know what I mean, and ran into some situations. But at the end of the day, yeah, it is about people recognizing, you know, your spirit and your true intent through your music, you know, and knowing how you coming, you know what I mean? So from all the rappers, you know, that I've ever met, all the cities I've ever been, it's been, you know, love for the most part, for sure, you know, and respect at least, you know.
Who do you, like, say you hop in the car tomorrow morning,
yeah.
What are you most likely listening to?
Shit, if I'm listening to some music, I bump a lot of old stuff. Recently I've been making a lot of music, so when I'm in that mode, it's like I'm either listening to beats or like mixes and stuff I'm working on. But I listen to a lot of old stuff, man, still. You know, things I love or things that I finally, like, discover. You know what I'm saying? And then I get, like, that probably was old. And then I just lock into a zone. You know, I'm a type of person, I listen to a song 100 times. I'll study it. If I love it, you know what I mean? I'll listen to it a lot and, like, take a lot of information, I guess, from those 3 minutes, or if you got a good album from that album, you know?
Yeah. No, that's one thing I do that I think a lot of people don't understand is that there's certain songs in my iTunes that have like 300 plays.
Yeah.
Because I'll be like working on something and I'll just want to get in the zone. So I'll put one song on repeat and just play, or one project. I got mixtapes that came out this year. I listened to them 85 fucking times.
That's what a great song is, or a hit. You know, I tell a lot of people, a lot of times people don't realize, like, when you see something with 100 million views, it's a lot of people watching, but it's a lot of people playing it over and over and over again.
That's why music videos do crazy ass views, is because people really do watch that shit hundreds of times.
Yeah, songs like us. Yeah, like if you could track, you know, back in CD days, how many times we just press back on that joint, like, and that's literally what they kind of doing today, right? So they count the streams based on that, but that don't mean like it's 500 million people listen to it that day. Like a lot, it might be a couple million, and motherfuckers was like, listen to it 10 times. That's a good ass song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
A good ass song.
You kind of came out during the era. There was like a weird era where like the CD sort of died, but streaming and downloads hadn't picked up yet.
Exactly.
That's
the business side of it,
right,
that a lot of people don't understand. Shit, we started, it wasn't even an iPhone. I be having to remind people that. You know what I mean? Fucking cane tripping. I gotta remind people that. You know what I'm saying? Like on some business, on some true business. You know, like no iPhone, no way to get money. You know what I'm saying? We coming out the dark ages, really. I call it like a Napster type stage.
Yeah,
you know
there was
what I'm
this
saying?
phase for like 5-6 years or
it's
something.
like it's give your music away for free just so the good music could spread, really.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I came a part of that with that intention. And honestly, that might have helped me. You know what I'm saying? Because we wasn't so ramped up in like sales and this and that. We had time and thoughtfulness and like who was our creating an audience. It was a big thing for me to like make the music that eventually, you know, that's the type of people that's coming to see you. You know, that's the type of people you're gonna run into. These is the type of people that's like your merch, you know what I'm saying, and all of that. So that's all in the music, you know. And I would say that time became, because it was kind of like shooting in the dark. We didn't have no metrics like now that, you know, you could see like this person in St. Louis listens to my song and they fucking with it way over here. They, you know, you was kind of shooting in the dark because we didn't have any of that. But your response, I guess, would be when you went somewhere, you know, how people received it. And then, of course, when you have a show, you know, and then you get to see, like, all the people come through and you're like, okay, damn, motherfuckers is, you know what I mean, checking this shit out. That's what's up.
I feel like rap shows in general weren't as big a thing before the CD shit kind of died, because there was like that whole era of people realizing like, oh damn, we ain't gonna get any money unless we do a whole bunch of touring.
Yeah.
All of a sudden there was just way more rap shows, and like going to shows became a lot bigger of a part of being a rap fan.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Definitely. How do you feel about like the streaming era and everything like that? Do you feel like you've adapted to it and you appreciate it?
I mean, yeah, I appreciate it. I feel like they, like, if you look at it, it's kind of like they salvaged something that, a car that was crashed. And, you know what I'm saying? They salvaged the business. Honestly, that wasn't anything. So you have to appreciate it, because all these artists, all these people, producers, you know, people that you work with, they have jobs. You know what I'm saying? They're people too. They got to get paid for their time, their effort, their money. So it's like they bought a way to monetize, you know, the artists of the next 100 years. I look at it like that. You know, they figure out a way to monetize it. I think, honestly, if anything, I would say they should have stopped that buying the albums. The streaming thing, it's cool. I like it. But I think they had it perfectly set up, but they was probably in fear that it was going to happen anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, people was going to go back to sharing the songs and figuring it out like that anyway. So they had to just link every avenue to the machine, you know?
Because Apple really like sabotaged their own business by saying like, oh, all these downloads, fuck it. Here, you spend $10 on an album, well, give us $10 a month and we'll give you everything.
Exactly.
But they knew it was coming. They had to do it.
Exactly. So, and I understand that part of it. They ain't always going to tell you like, look, this storm coming. You know what I mean? They was proactive. So it's like, it all evens out for sure.
That's a fact. Who do you see doing things in terms of like younger LA rappers that you respect, that you appreciate, what you see going on these days?
Man, out of the young dudes, like who? It's a lot of them. You know, I've been getting more familiar, like my boy Nico G4. He's our youngest, you know, we could say artist tied to OPM. He got his own movement, Run with the Winners. Shout out to, you know, Nico and shit. That's my dog, you know, so I kind of get to see like that kind of movement from his eyes. Like, that a show downtown. I forget where it was at. It was one of the new showcases, though.
So Don't Come to LA?
Exactly. Yeah. And there was a gang of dudes performing. And we was just talking about
Rosecrans.
Yeah, exactly. It was a great event. But as I was there, I'm waiting, you know, for them to perform, and I'm like, damn, I never heard of none of these people. Warren Brew was the main artist, but it was like Inglewood Rucci.
Shout out Rucci too, yeah.
A couple other people that I had heard maybe their name before.
Blueface on that one? I don't remember. That was the most recent one, I think.
No, it was I can't even think. One Take or something like that.
Maybe. One Take J.
Maybe he was there or somebody like that. They was pretty tight. I like people energy. I've heard of Shoreline Mafia.
Shoreline.
You know what I'm saying?
Those are my homies.
Yeah. I've heard of Shoreline Mafia. I met Draco, you know, from back when he was rocking with Mustard and them. I kind of remember him from being around them. You know what I'm saying? I understand his talent. Like, my little cousins, they really like his music. You know what I'm saying?
Draco.
Yeah, for sure. And then I know Greedo. I would say, honestly, Greedo is the most talented about the art and the music. Like, his angle is like, even though, you know, he just got locked up, But he got some music. His label, I don't know what label he on. You need to tell
Alamo.
him. Alamo. They need to holler at my boy HB, Hit Boy. He got a whole album with O3 that's really, really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard, man. And seeing him, and it would be just me, Hit, and Greedo, and I really got to understand like how he was approaching his music, and like I saw a couple videos before. I really love the Mafia one.
Mafia Business, yeah.
I love that
That's
one.
a classic
I love
one.
that one. Yeah, I got to chop it with him about that song and shit.
How it wasn't even supposed to be out for the public. It was supposed to be just for the hood. That's what he told me. I was like, damn, that's crazy to think that wasn't even supposed to be for people. And that all the lyrics are things that people aren't supposed to get, but it still took off.
I understand it, exactly, because it's real. You know what I'm saying? And that's where the art kind of penetrates a little bit deeper. You know, it's like for what you may lack in like talent, I guess sometimes you can make up for in just in honesty, you know, and being yourself and creative, you know, in your own world. And I think like he mastered that, you know, So I really understand what he was doing, you know, through his music right before he got locked up, for sure.
That's so.
And it was new.
Seeing his creative process, so that stand out in comparison to how you do it a lot, because Greedo's the type to go in the studio, get geeked the fuck up, and just go in for 8 hours and make 10 songs. I feel like your shit is more deliberate, thought out, written.
Yeah,
it's like
I've done it all. I've done it all, but for sure, he's more like. I mean, I can't say it's not deliberate just because he, you know, he might come, you know, more off the top of the head.
Yeah.
Because I think he does, like, he is aware and thinks about it, you know, but he just, because he's so in tune with, the thing about it is you got to be really in tune with yourself, man, your spirit at that time when you're creating, you know what I mean, and really get to the point. And I don't know if it was maybe the pressure of going to prison or, you know, just the life and the opportunity, but he was really like locked in before, you know.
I saw his energy level change a lot, because I remember being in the studio with him a couple of years ago, and it was more normal. But those studio sessions, like during those months where he knew he was about to go in for this long ass bid, it was like he had a fucking demon that was just trying to get out of him, where he just wanted to put everything down.
See,
you know?
that's the person I met. You know what I mean? Who was like. He was still kind of reserved when we first met, and he told me, he was like, man, I really fuck with you, like, because, you know, a lot of dudes we'll talk about doing songs, but he was like, you got on the song. You know, he on the song. On the next, me and he got another follow-up to the project we did. He's on one of the songs. And he was like, man, you really, like, got on the song, like, kind of how you saying, like, he did. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not too good to just be like, fuck it, put the beat on. You know what I mean? And, like, let's figure it out. And you know, I appreciated that. But yeah, he just really in tune with what he wants to say. You know what I mean? And that kind of lets him not really have to think about it. You know, he not playing the character.
True. Yeah.
You know?
As crazy as he is, he lets you in. He'll let you know how crazy he is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, free Greedo, that's crazy. Speaking of though, how do you feel? Like, I remember you had this publicized sort of incident where you said something about Funk Flex. All the websites decided that they wanted to run with it because he had disrespected Tupac.
Right.
That has become a weird theme in rap where everybody can just make headlines. All you got to do is say something about Tupac. Greedo did it. Lil Xan did it in very different ways. But how do you feel about that? And in terms of like the respect that our elders should get?
Yeah, I don't side with that. Obviously, I don't know. I don't really know where they coming from. Honestly, I really don't. You know what I'm saying? Because when I was, you know, when I first started rapping, that would be like me being like, you know, yeah, like fuck Wu-Tang or like, you know, Big Daddy Kane.
That's
you
hard
know,
to even imagine, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, damn, when I saw Big Daddy Kane, I was like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It felt like a kid. When I met Slick Rick, I was like excited. You know what I mean? Like I'm meeting a real superhero. You know what I mean? So it's like for people, I don't know in what context you would ever want to, you know, besides point out little character flaws, I guess, you know, of personality traits, but we all got them. You know what I mean? So when you start playing that game, shit, you know what's going to happen. Is somebody going to expose yours. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you could do that with Tupac, I guess, you know, and I could go down the list and say, he was a real, but except for this and this and this and this, like, well, we could do that about every single human being on earth, right? That ever lived.
Yeah.
Right. So outside of that, it's like, you know what Tupac did. You know how he died. You know the commitment he had to music. You know his songs. You could listen to him. it's not really no reason to disrespect that man, other than you think it's not no repercussions for that.
Right.
But it is.
It's crazy though too how the media can twist stuff, because I'm friends with Greedo's manager. He's in the room when that whole thing happened, and he was describing it to me, and he said that they just kept asking Greedo about all these different rappers, and then they go, you know, what about Tupac? Man, fuck Tupac. I don't want to hear about no Tupac like that. Like, and when I thought about it like that, I'm like, oh, of course he said it like that, because he just is that kind of guy. He doesn't think about shit like that.
I think they would be saying it more from a fatigue factor, because he is such a giant of all of this. So it's like, you know, I was, before I left, the little baseball game came on, and the corny announcer dude had a Tupac reference. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they hate Tupac because they love him so much. The world love him so much that it's like you realize if you getting into it, if you're gonna be a boxer, they gonna say you're not the greatest, because Muhammad Ali's the greatest. So eventually, you trying to fight to be the greatest one day, you might just be like, man, I'm tired of hearing about Muhammad Ali. I'll serve him if he was here. That's probably how they feel. Is that true?
Yeah. No, I seen it too. TMZ showed up here because I said when my homie X died, I said that he was the Tupac of our generation, of like this younger 19-year-old, 20-year-old generation right now.
Why you say that?
I say that just because I feel like he was so emotionally open and so giving of himself, and he also just like lived his life out in public. He had all these crazy stories associated with him, in the sense that he was just like a legend that was bigger than the music. I'm not saying that like his talent was necessarily comparable to Tupac or anything. I just said on Twitter or some shit, I said the way that these kids feel right now is the way that I felt when Tupac died. And then all of a sudden TMZ was out in front like, yo, we got to talk to you about that. Because it's a guaranteed headline, Tupac, you know? As soon as you say one thing about Tupac, boom, it's just, you're ready for the front page of yahoo.com.
That's a testament to him. Yeah,
for real, still, 20 years later.
For sure, like, you bring his name up, because you know what you're talking about. You know what you're talking about. Like, I understand, to me, Biggie was the best pure rapper, but when you talk about person that did rap music, nah, it's not close. You know, Tupac, he's like Bob Marley for the rap game. You know?
No, I feel that. Yeah, he's somehow like meant, like Biggie. When we look at him as like a technician, as a rapper, as a like just like a hilarious writer of lyrics.
Right.
With Tupac, it was so much more about who he was than just the music. Although it was definitely the music too. Like he definitely had that part.
Yeah, he knew his beats when he was on was phenomenal. His choice in any area of his songs, he knew exactly, like you saying, the music side of it. But he put more of his personality and his life into it than, you know, 100% more than the average person, you know, and he got that back. That's why he was like electric like that, because he put that into it, you know?
That's a fact. So when you look at how'd you become friends with Quick? Because I've always been fascinated by him in general.
Yeah, Quick is the greatest, man. I met Quick probably for the first time. Maybe I had a show, but back when they had the Key Club on Sunset, I had a show, and he came to one of them. Probably because I used to shout him out in a lot of interviews or whatever. I don't know, but I just remember him being there. I think maybe that was the first time I met him, actually, and then we started kicking him maybe a year after that, where I first got to like work with him and like just talk to him and stuff like that, you know. And Quick, man, he's really like the reason why I could say I wouldn't rap if it wasn't for DJ Quick. A lot of people, especially probably outside of California, like, what the fuck, you know what I mean? Or like they wouldn't understand that all the way, you know. But for me, because, you know, coming up, Quick did have, you know, like the gang music affiliation to his music, but at the same time, it was just so fly, and like he had different levels and subject matters, you know what I mean? And I really understood that and appreciated that as a kid, you know? And I appreciated being able to play his CDs over and over and playing when my mom picked me up and when I was by myself. Like a lot of people, you know, they might have one song and you know, a couple songs, and them songs were so left, you really didn't listen to them that much. But Quick was like, everybody could understand it, you know what I mean? Everybody could feel it, you know what I mean? I felt like, at least, so I just appreciated it, you know, always. He was like my favorite in terms of like albums from the years when I was, you know, coming up. DJ Quick, you know. Is
it trippy to like be friends with somebody that you were like growing up looking at like that from that perspective?
For sure. Hell yeah. It is a lot, you know what I mean? Just hearing them talk sometime, when I remember being in the studio before and seeing him go in the booth for the first time and hearing like that voice on the mic, you know what I mean? How he could just turn it on like that, you know what I mean? And be like DJ Quick, that sound exactly like on Tonight. You know what I mean? And it was like, damn. You know what I mean? This shit is like, I remember even knowing first time, like, yeah, this is history, you know, hearing that voice so much, you know what I mean? It's definitely crazy. But then it's just people, you know, Sugar Free too. He a cool dude, you know what I mean? They just regular people, you know?
Yeah, I've recently became friends with Travis Barker from Blink-182 and shit. And I mean, it took me about 5 minutes to like forget that I've been looking up to him for 20 years, you know? Because it's just so normal that it's like, shit, why did I ever like I still have the same amount of respect for you, but why did I ever feel like intimidated by you? You're a regular dude, you know?
Exactly. Super quick, super regular.
But that's like amazing to be able to even be rich and famous and still hold on to that, still give off that vibe. Because I know so many rich and famous people that their whole vibe is like you just don't even know how to fucking interact with them because you could tell that they've built themselves up in their own heads to such a point where they don't even want to talk to anybody.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's gotta suck.
Yeah. So talk about like where you're at right now, new music you have coming out, shit you have right now that you're excited about, just in general, like where you're at with the music.
Yeah, we're getting ready to drop this Volume 2. That's my next album. It's just called Volume 2. 16 tracks, you know what I mean, hitting the road. When we hitting the road? In October. Into October through the end of the year. We're going to hit some little cities in support of the album. Take a couple people with us. Could we say? Yeah, Kaz. Kaz is one of the openers.
That's what's up.
J305 and Warren Brew. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I feel like this is like the second half. Volume 2 is like the beginning of the second half of my career. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to apply all the knowledge, all the creativity, all the things that work for me, all the things that didn't work for me, and make something amazing. You know what I mean? Until I'm really retiring with this. You know what I mean? Just let my artists take over.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's like the inevitable? Like, do you think about retiring? Is that like is that immediate concern?
I did a little like a school little talk for some kids in Inglewood at a school my homegirl worked at, and the kid asked me that, and it was funny. But I mean, obviously, you know, like I look at rap like this, like a lot of people, you know, even people now like MGK and Eminem, right? Let's just say.
Oh, you like that?
Man, it's crazy. I was kicking it with MGK right before that, you know what I'm saying? Like I was there, he was working with Hit again, and I was there, and I was seeing how serious he was about everything. Obviously he didn't even know, and all that shit kind of unfolded naturally. But to stay on topic, I was saying, like, you know, people like Eminem and things like that, I don't know, I think rap is definitely, and it's gonna get younger. It's a young man's game, you know what I'm saying? You gotta be like locked in on some real, like, you know what I mean? It's really a medium for the young people. Like, you could do it for a long time, but I don't look at myself as like being like 40 years old rapping or nothing like that. Hell no. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think so. Like,
I think it's dope to still be able to make music, but maybe not necessarily be like you see 40-year-old dudes putting out their music and rapping their minivan with their face and everything.
And that's just me.
Like,
exactly. Yeah. That's just me. You know what I'm saying? I hope to like to think that, you know, we gonna have the next artist that's gonna sell out all the Staples Center shows when we done with it, you know, and continue it going. And that's how I'm gonna work through music, through my company. You know, that's how I set it up. Up until this point, I'm the biggest artist on OPM. Up until this point, you know what I'm saying? Tomorrow, year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, when I'm not doing music no more, you know what I'm saying? I hope to, like, how those companies, you know, that I mentioned earlier, like, a lot of them, they were centered around their star or whoever was hot at the time. And then when that didn't go, then it's kind of like everybody else. You know what I'm saying? Top Dog probably will be the best one, even of all time now, really, to have multiple artists and keep going and span over a long period of time.
And people forget that Kendrick was opening for J-Rock when he first got in there. You know,
exactly.
It's like it's like a label. It's such a long-term project that it's like, of course, it's going to go through phases and have different people who are at the forefront.
Exactly. But you want to be in it like any other company. You know what I'm saying? That's the goal, to have, you know, if you're in business for 20 years, be high all 20 if you can, but have multiple artists. So I figure like my solo success is just one part of the company. I don't look at it like when I stop rapping, we're done. You know, we're just going to sell greatest hits or whatever. Like, no, that's not going to happen. You know, we'll have other artists that's going to do their thing, you know, and I'll get whatever I need to get out of music through putting their music out and sharing my ideas and my experiences, maybe hop on a song or whatever. But yeah, like you said, like 45 years old, rapping with my face on the van. Nah, you know.
Face on the van is just the ultimate statement. I feel like, I don't know why that always makes me
You
laugh.
said that, man. But nah, I'm not going to do it.
They don't do it out here like they do it in Atlanta. Atlanta,
Right,
every
right.
gas station you go to, somebody's face is on the van. All right, yo, man, I appreciate you coming through.
Hell yeah, it's
big
been a
big shout out
pleasure.
to Wicked Thoughts for bringing us together, man. That's one of my favorite LA brands.
Yep,
period.
he on the come up. All right, that's my
Yes.
dog.
We got a No Jumper collab coming out. Actually,
Okay.
if you want to do some modeling, we might need to get a photo once we
Merch
get that
looking
stuff.
crazy. It's done. Let's do it.
Fire, man. Hey, I appreciate you coming through.
Yep,
And
yep.
wow, yeah. Actually, I got to holler at J305 about doing a little interview over here too. That would be fire.
Yeah, probably like he got a single coming out. I say like maybe in the next month.
Okay.
But maybe closer to the album for sure. Definitely have him come through.
He just hopped on. He did a song in a video with my friend Lil House Phone too, who's like he was originally like one of my co-hosts. Yeah, it ain't out yet, but they just filmed it. Him and Lil House Phone. Lil House Phone hard though.
That's his name, rap name.
I'm saying, you know, I know these kids, they're going crazy.
Crazy.
He's not that much of a kid. He's kind of fat now. All right, yo, I appreciate it. Don Kennedy,
sir.
everybody. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
For real.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
I'm rolling like an alpha, I'm rolling like an alpha,